review of Jojo's Bizarre Adventure Stardust Crusaders episode 26, the conclusion of the Iggy the Fool and Geb's Avdol two-parter. So the episode continues right where it left off, and Jotaro and the others crash into the sand. Even though they tried not to make a sound, unfortunately for them, Avdol memorized their locations. However, Avdol came up with a plan. He takes off his bracelets from his arm, and he flings one after the other to create sound, which Avdol mistaken them as footsteps. So the reason why Avdol was doing this so that he can lure Geb into this one spot and incinerate the stand using Magician's Red. Here's the thing though, Magician's Red's a fire stand, and Geb is a water stand, so water is strong against fire. From what was shown, Avdol did get burned by Avdol's stand, so I guess the fire might have been stronger than the water stand. The preview did show Avdol getting his neck sliced. It kind of like spoiled the suspense of like what was gonna happen with Avdol, because I know that he was gonna get injured pretty badly. But seeing Magician's Red was freaking awesome again, and it looked like that he was about to get finished off by Geb, but Jotaro decides to do something about it and starts running so that he can lure Geb away from the rest of the group. But he was running towards Iggy, grabs onto him, runs to the nearest sandhill, and slams him onto the ground, threatening his life because he knew that Iggy escaped before Geb's attack, saying that if he doesn't do something to help them right now, he's gonna get killed by Geb, and he's not gonna get any gum. But Iggy does summon his stand, the Fool, and he uses his stand to not only to save himself by gliding through the air, because the Fool can glide apparently, but not for very long. It can only do for pretty short distances, not for very long distances. And he also used his stand to create a sand clone to replace himself. But Jotaro was quick enough to use Star Platinum to grab onto the Fool, gliding along with Iggy. He even threatens to break his neck if he tries to shake him off. And throughout this flight, Iggy was like so goddamn nervous to the point where he was constantly farting. This was something I forgot to mention in my previous review. I apologize for that, by the way, but Iggy farts a lot. He farted on Polnareff's face while he was chewing on his hair, which apparently he does that according to Joseph. So Avdol had no idea where the hell Jotaro and Iggy are. The Fool was losing altitude. Jotaro had no choice but to use Star Platinum to jump up high enough to gain more altitude, which did give them a disadvantage because Avdol now knew that they were flying. He also knew that Jotaro and Iggy were flying towards him, which, by the way, Jotaro used Star Platinum's enhanced eyesight to find him, who was actually out in the middle of the desert. How is he not bothered by the heat? Well, I guess he's used to it. Here's like one thing I really don't understand with Avdol. Like, Avdol was able to figure out that it was Jotaro that was running just by hearing the sound of his footsteps. I mean, he was able to tell his height, for God's sakes, yet he mistakes Avdol throwing his bracelets onto the ground as footsteps. Avdol used his stand Geb to fling sand up into the air so that he can hear the reflective sound of the sand hitting the Fool so that he can pinpoint their location in the air, and used his stand Geb to attack Jotaro, which he managed to slice his shoulder. Iggy, I gotta be honest here, even though I did like him at the beginning, now I think he's kind of an asshole in this. He was willing to sacrifice Jotaro just to save himself by dragging Jotaro, trying to get him off the Fool. That's kind of a dick move, really. But from what was shown later on, he was dragged into a battle that did not involve him. He had nothing to do with Dio. He's the only person out of the group that has no connection with him whatsoever. So his actions can be kind of understandable, but it's still kind of an asshole thing to do, honestly. Jotaro uses Star Platinum to grab Iggy, and oh god, this was so freaking hilarious. He throws him right at Avdol like a freaking baseball. Oh my god, that was hilarious. I mean, sure, poor Iggy, but then again, he was willing to sell out Jotaro just to save his own hide, so I guess that's payback in a way, but still, poor Iggy had to be thrown. Avdol had no choice but to call back his stand to defend himself. Iggy had to call back his stand to also defend himself from the collision, which only managed to knock away Endul's cane, but without that cane, he wasn't able to pinpoint Jotaro's location. But when he got the cane, he then realized that Jotaro was like right behind him. But he didn't attack him right away because he had his stand nearby, so he would have used it to defend himself farther away. So then we get this like intense showdown, which was triggered by the cane falling between Jotaro and Star Platinum and Endul and Geb. Iggy was like at the distance, like being all nervous as all hell. Right when the cane fell, their stands start to attack, but Jotaro managed to punch him so hard into the chest, but not enough to kill him. And Geb, all it did was manage to knock off his hat. So with that being said, the fight's done, Endul's defeated, so it's all over, right? Wrong! Endul used Geb to pierce right through his skull. Because he knew that Hermit Purple was going to read through his thoughts and gather some intel on the other 8 stand users, he was willing to kill himself because he was so loyal to Dio. He did not want to sell him out. To which Jotaro questions why he would go so far for him, to which we actually get some character development, I guess you would call it, because this is the kind of the closest thing we ever had to some of Dio's minions, if you think about it. It was revealed that ever since he was a child, Endul was never afraid of dying. He can get away with all these crimes, including murder, and not be afraid. So he's technically an awful human being, and yet throughout this episode when he was dying, I kind of felt bad for him. I don't know why. I mean, I didn't want to, but he was one of the more interesting minions out of Dio's group, and I gotta admit, I was more intrigued by him, which to the point where I really didn't want him to die just yet because I want to know more about him. But it was when he first met Dio was when he was truly afraid. Even though he wasn't afraid of dying, he was afraid to be casted aside by Dio and get killed by him. But the way Endul describes Dio, since he was the first person to acknowledge him as someone who's powerful, deep, large, and beautiful. Then again, this is Dio's charisma, and Dio's the kind of person that would manipulate people like this, so yeah, I'm not gonna touch on that. Anyway, we get a brief flashback of Endul first meeting Dio. We also get to see Enya was in the background. What I like about this scene is just shows like how intimidating Dio is. Right before Endul dies, he tells Jotaro his name, the name of his stand, and that all the 9 stands are named after the 9 Egyptian gods that inspired the tarot cards, which probably explained why Avdol didn't know about these 9 other stand users. But the thing is, Endul's stand, Geb, it's a water stand, yet it's named after the Egyptian god of the earth. Maybe it's because he uses the ground to hear sound or something? I don't know, but yeah, Endul dies. By the way, they do the same mist thing whenever stand user dies. But then again, back in episode 11, Polnareff does the same thing and he's still alive. I don't know what's up with that. I guess that's the thing that stand users do. I don't know. But out of respect, this is kind of the first time Jotaro shows respect out of Dio's minions. He buries his corpse in the sand, leaving a cane as a marker of his grave. Right before he leaves, all the while wondering what kind of person Dio really is. Iggy confronts him and is still pissed after what happened to him. But since he considered Iggy's point of view, he's not really like mad at him at all and decides to give him a piece of gum. To which Iggy was so pissed, he refused, which was kind of surprising. But Iggy then returns to give him his hat, which I thought was a nice moment. Maybe it's his way of apologizing, but no, that's his way of getting back at him because he put a piece of gum underneath the brim of his hat. God damn, Iggy is such an ass. Then again, he was thrown like a baseball by Star Platinum, so I guess that was his way of getting back at Jotaro, so take it as you will, I guess. So, I don't know if this means that they're even now, I guess. Since Iggy is still gonna stick around with the rest of the group, I don't know if he's going to, like, help them out now. Maybe he'll participate more in the group, or maybe he'll just go off and do his own thing while hanging out with the rest of the group, but only participate if it involves him at all, but again, I really don't know. But anyway, the episode ends off with the rest of the group catching up to Jotaro and Iggy. After the ending, we get an after-credits scene, which features 2 more stand users, Oingo and Boingo. And yet, for some reason, their names in this are Zenyatta and Mondata. Again, this is a copyright thing, but I'm still gonna call them Oingo and Boingo. You know, we see Boingo, and he seems to be this shy, quiet kid, who was confronted by this manga artist who seems to be nice to him. He was reading the comic book, which was telling the story about the Oingo and Boingo brothers. But the weird thing is, the manga artist was also in the story, and at the end of it, he gets killed by getting his throat impaled by a telephone pole. That was weird. And he was willing to buy the book, but Boingo's brother Oingo appears and chases him away. They were heading to Aswan to get to Jotaro and the others to kill them, but what was shown in the comic book made Oingo realize that they should wait for a later bus. Later on, there was an accident and the bus crashed, and we see the same manga artist whose neck was impaled by the telephone pole. So yeah, the comic book is a standard that can predict the future. Okay, sure, why not? So yeah, that is the episode. Overall, I thought this was a pretty good conclusion to the Geb and Iggy two-parter. Avdol as a character overall, I liked him more as a minion because he not only came off as a threat, but he came off as pretty intimidating, a tough opponent, and we get a little bit more on his backstory. Well, the closest thing we have to a backstory out of any of Dio's minions so far. And he was actually one of the more loyal minions out of Dio's group. Maybe there's a difference between the Egyptian god stand users and the tarot card stand users. Maybe the Egyptian god stand users are more loyal and more in it to please Dio than the tarot card stand users, which most of them were just in it for the money. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what Oingo and Boingo will do. For the most part, the animation, the voice acting was really good. The music, once again, was good as always. I especially like that bizarre music that was playing in the after credits scene. I gotta give kudos to Kentaro Ito, who voiced Avdol, because he did a really good job at this. The fight actually concluded a lot quicker than I expected, which explained the after credits scene. So overall, this was a really good episode, and what was shown in the preview, it doesn't reveal a lot from what I can tell, but it seems that these brothers, Oingo and Boingo, are going to confront Jotaro and the others and going to take them on. But we know that Boingo's stand, from what was shown in the title, it's called Thoth, which is the comic book stand, which, here's the thing, how is it that the manga artist was able to see the comic book, since the comic book was a stand? And better yet, how did the manga artist end up at the pole, getting himself impaled? What's up with that? As for Oingo's stand, we don't know what it is, but it's called the Knum? Knum? I don't know how to pronounce that, but we don't know what his stand is. We only know its name from what was shown in the title of the preview, but we don't know what it is. But it does make me look forward to next week's episode. We're finally gonna get another team up because we haven't had that since Whole Horse and J-Gal, so maybe they're gonna be just as good as J-Gal and Whole Horse, who knows, but I'm definitely looking forward to next week's episode. So tell me guys, what are your thoughts of this week's episode of Stardust Crusaders? Did you like it? Did you hate it? What are your thoughts so far on Avdol and how he went out? And what are your thoughts on Iggy as a whole? So far, I want to like Iggy, but he kind of came off as an asshole in this, but it's understandable why he would do this, but I'm hoping that I'll like the character more as the series progresses, hopefully. So yeah, tell me your thoughts about the episode in the comments down below. Be sure to like the video if you like it, and subscribe to more videos, and be sure to check out my Facebook fan page and Google+. If you want to check out the episode yourself, it's now out on Crunchyroll, so I'll leave a link in the description down below. So yeah, that is Stardust Crusaders episode 26. I'm gonna respond 27, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.